Hello to all my beautiful people out there. This is Natalie Silva with Life Treasures and Golden Moments, where I share with you two stories of miracles and stories of inspiration. And as I promised, the month of January, we're going to be talking about how to make our lives better. And today's story is called She Altered My Attitude, written by Chris Flaw. Winston Churchill once made the statement, "Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference." And this is so true, and you will see this in the story today. My 90-year-old grandmother rested quietly in her hospital bed after a visit from her heart surgeon. He explained that she needed a quadruple bypass, and she clung to the only good news he delivered. She had the body of a 70-year-old. Grandma's vanity required that she still dye her hair, and the brown curls framed her porcelain face, her warm eyes, and her thin-lipped smile as she asked, "What would you do?" My grandfather had died nearly 30 years earlier, and Grandma had independently made decisions ever since. I knew she made up her mind before she even asked me, but she liked me to feel included in her life, especially after my mother had passed away. "I'd have the surgery," I said. She nodded and softly said, "I don't want to go home and wait to die. Besides, I'll be fine." She was right. A few days later, a post-op nurse allowed me to visit Grandma in the recovery room after her surgery, a rather unusual privilege in hindsight. I was relieved Grandma had survived the operation, but had been strangely confident that she would. Surprisingly, she lay naked and unconscious on the gurney, not yet cleaned up or bandaged. She had yellow iodine smeared all over her upper body between her elongated breast, and I was impressed that her enormous incision was stitched together as perfectly as any seam that she had ever sewn. The sight of her chest rising and falling was comforting, but if Grandma had been awake, she would have been embarrassed for me to see her naked. I held her hand and pondered the point at which my body would look like her, medically speaking. 70-year-old and worried that given my stressful job it would be the time I was 40 instead of 90. About a year after my grandma's successful surgery, my partner Ann and I invited her to our house for barbecued ribs. It was one of her favorite meals. I thought she'd enjoy a diversion from the usual mashed potatoes and gravy fare served daily at her assisted living apartment. That particular Thursday night, both Ann and I got stuck at work. We got home only minutes before Grandma arrived, which killed any hope of serving her normal early dinner. I bought some time by offering to show her my nearby office while Ann got dinner going. I helped Grandma carefully lower herself into my sports car, and then I drove the short distance to my company's headquarters. She almost gasped as I turned down the tree-lined driveway that framed the roadway to the front of the building. Her face was full of wonder, like it always was, and her bright eyes took in everything around her. "Oh, it's so beautiful," she said. "It looks like a park." I'd never really thought of the grounds that way. My mind was usually distracted by the latest project delay or staff crisis. I drove to the private driveway at the back of the building and used my security card to enter the underground garage. The automatic door slowly opened, and I parked my car in my assigned spot and started her tour. Grandma was impressed with everything: the pristine underground garage, the sheer numbers of cubicles that stretched as far as the eye could see, the variety of logo wear for sale at the company store, and the smell of food waiting from the full-service dining room. As we stepped into the cafeteria, I asked, "Given your diabetes, should we grab something here to hold you over until we get home?" She looked at the herb chicken dinner, the salad soup, and sandwich bars and said, "I don't want to spoil my appetite, but do they serve such extravagant meals every night?" Again, through her eyes, I'd taken the quality and convenience of our cafeteria for granted. But the aromas made me want to head home for our own dinner. "Just one more stop on the tour, Grandma. I want to show you where I sit." We walked to my office, and we both plopped down in chairs around my small conference table. She stroked the mahogany and said, "Oh, this is really nice." Then she pointed across my office to the chair behind my desk and asked, "Who sits there?" Grandmother had always gotten a glazed look on her face whenever I explained what I did for a living, but it seemed she thought I worked at the conference table while my boss sat in the big chair behind the desk. Knowingly, she had been impressed with even that. I giggled as I said, "Well, Grandma, I do. This entire office is mine. I usually sit there at the computer and use this table for meetings with my staff." Her eyes flashed with astonishment. She looked around my office with a new appreciation. Her response struck me. She had attended teacher's college, or normal school as she called it, but when she got pregnant with my father, she gave up her career. The opportunities for women had expanded far beyond those available to my grandmother, teacher, nurse, secretary, or homemaker. She went over and sat down in my desk chair. She spun the chair around, and then, one by one, she stared at the photographs of Canyonlands, Zion, Yosemite National Parks that I'd taken while on vacation. I pointed to one picture on the wall entitled Attitude. It had a rainbow stretched above a roaring mountain stream and William James words embossed in the bottom. "I bought it with your Christmas money last year." She looked at the picture, drew a deep breath, and then read the words out aloud. "The greatest discovery of any generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes." She said, "I like all your pictures, but I think this one's my favorite." "Me too, Grandma. Are you ready to go home and eat?" She nodded. As we left my office, she stopped outside the door, and she looked back. She gestured towards my nameplate and said, "I didn't notice that when we walked in." She touched the letters of my last name, of her last name, and then she looped her arm through mine, patted my wrist, and said, "You've certainly done very well for yourself. I'm so proud of you." When we got back to the house, Grandma patiently waited for us to serve dinner. It was almost 8 when we finally sat down for our meal. Grandma attempted to eat her plate of ribs, but the pork was tough as bricks. When she finished eating what she could, she wiped her mouth with her napkin and unwittingly summed up her philosophy of life. "That barbecue sauce sure was tasty." My employer's headquarters, my office, and even my job never looked as wonderful as they did that day through my grandmother's eyes, her glistening gray eyes that always sparkled with possibility and only lingered on the good, especially when she looked at me. In our lives, we sometimes become settled or stuck in our way of thinking about someone or something, and it's reflected in our behavior. If we alter our attitude in these times and change our thinking of that person or the situation, which is in our daily life's journey, it may make a positive difference, and instead of clouds, there will be rainbows. Take care, my friends, and may God bless. Until next time, this is Natalie Silva.